Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Galindo, and I am the Senior Associate for the Global Exchange here at CECP. We are very excited to be able to participate in this very important launch event and would love to congratulate Comunitas on their 10th year anniversary. Very excited to be here. I'm also with Andres Solórzano, Manager of Data Insights here at CECP.
Hey, Laura, it's a pleasure to be here and really excited to hear more about the latest trends in global giving.
Absolutely. So we are here to present a little bit about CECP's research, which is also related to total giving. And Andre, of course, being the manager of Data Insights, will give you some very interesting data points that will be hopefully insightful for all of you as well at the event. So just to give a little bit of background in terms of CECP, sorry, the presentation is taking a little bit. But just to give you a little bit of background about CECP, it was founded in 1999 by actor and philanthropist Paul Newman, who we have here on the screen. And CECP is a coalition of CEOs united in the belief that corporations can and should be a force for good for society. And while CECP has evolved much since those days, which is near 2 decades now, that core belief really still influences and guides our vision of being the CEO force for good. So a couple of quick things, if you would like to remember something about CECP, is that we focus a lot on serving large companies and their abilities and structures to execute on societal engagement programs. Are differentiated because of really their scale, and it's important to bring them together in a venue like this. So just a few quick facts. The coalition is really composed right now of over 200 CEOs and companies, most of them based and headquartered in the United States. And the coalition has also a $7 trillion in collective annual revenue, and an aggregate total societal investment, which tops 18.6 billion in 2015. And just to give you a bit of a snapshot of examples of companies that are part of our coalition, these are some of them, of course not all, but with all of them, we work together to advance 2 mandates. The first one is really to advance the movement and to understand how corporations can be a good for society. And the second one is related to how we can support that vision of having corporations be a good for society. And the way we support companies is by really working with their social strategy. While this presentation will only focus on the research component, it is certainly a very important one because it allows companies to benchmark against their peers, and all the data points that CECP collects really helps in these companies advance the movement. Okay, so given that this presentation will focus in the research, we just wanted to give you a few a bit of background on the 2 main research that CECP publishes. The first one is Giving in Numbers, and this year was the 12th edition, and the second one is Giving Around the Globe. And really, when it comes to translating this research externally, these are the 2 major pieces of research that, of course, are free for download on our website. And the first one, Giving Numbers, it's really a very rigorous report, and it goes through the whole process to understand the ways that companies engage with society, from their corporate foundation to their corporate giving budgets, as well as how they're leveraging employees and products and how they are measuring such efforts, which is very important. And just relating to Give Around the Globe, several years ago, CECP began to globalize and expand from working with largest companies to other companies headquartered outside of the United States. So we are also, of course, interested in being able to benchmark in a quantitative way the way companies work from other parts of the world. And we saw a lot of interest, and this sparked something that led to giving around the globe, which of course it's much younger. It's just 5 editions, and the way that we collect the data, it's pretty much a short-listed version of the survey that companies respond to giving in numbers. And this research is led by the data insights team here at CECP, which is involved in both collecting, comparing, evaluating, and sharing. And also, we wanted to give you a brief introduction to the Global Exchange, which is the reason why we are here and collaborating with Comunitas, which is very important. And several years ago, as I mentioned, CECP began to globalize. And from the research, those relationships evolved to partnerships that went way beyond the research. So that turned into the Global Exchange, and this is an effort which initiated really nearly 2 years ago, and this effort seeks to unite country-based, mission-driven corporate societal engagement organizations to advance the corporate sector as a force for good, but now around the world. Each country has something that we call local authorities. So, for example, Comunitas is the local authority in Brazil, and these local authorities work individually with some of the world's largest companies to support their societal engagement efforts, offering cultural learnings and context, expert data-driven insights, and country-specific social impact efforts, as well as opportunities to deepen corporate programs in the regions around the world. So in terms of participating organizations as of today, each of the Global Exchange local authorities in their respective country, right now there are 11, counting CECP. We have a strong presence in Europe with Beyond Philanthropy in Germany, Admical in France, Dynamo in Italy, very strong presence as well in Asia with Taiwan, mainland China and Hong Kong, South Korea and India. And if you look at the coalition overall, there is combined, we cover 59% of the world's GDP and 50% of the world's population, which is something that can lead to a very high impact. So that is a bit of the background on Global Exchange. And of course, we just want to highlight again the relationship and very strong partnership that we have with Comunitas, which dates several years ago. It started because of the research itself, but it has evolved to a much deeper relationship, and now we collaborate in many other fronts. And of course, Comunitas for us, for CECP, is really the gateway into the Latin American market. And we really look forward to continuing this relationship, to continue celebrating the very great research and very insightful research that has been going on for 10 years. And now I want to turn it into Andre, who will give you much more insights and much more detail on the specific research. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. That was a great introduction to the different initiatives we have globally. So we want to share some of the main insights of this year's reports from both giving in numbers and then from giving around the globe. So just to give a general background on the general research of giving in numbers, we want to mention who participated in this year's survey. And basically, we had 258 companies of the world's largest corporations that participated in giving in numbers. The requirement for these companies to participate is that they have to have at least $2 billion in annual revenues. And the aggregated contributions of all the companies that participated in the survey added up to almost $21 billion. We're talking about a lot of money here. Basically, this is equivalent to the gross domestic product of a middle-income country like El Salvador, for instance. When this happened, we started collecting the data, and we do it every year in the spring. And what kind of data do we collect? We collect data on topics related to corporate societal engagement. We have trends about total giving, cash giving, about matching gifts, volunteering, and management and program costs of administering all these different initiatives. And we've been collecting data since 2001, so we have a very a long-term time series here, and we've been collaborating with our friends from the conference board since 2012. More information about the respondents' profile can be found on pages 37 to 39 of this year's report of Giving You Numbers 2017 edition, which you can download. It's publicly available. We wanted to take a look back into the latest 10 years of data we have collected, the data that goes between 2007 and 2016. We see that, for instance, the pink line shows us the top quartile. In other words, the top quartile determines what's the cutoff point, which has 25% of the observations on top. It's basically the top 25. In order to be part of the top 25 in 2007, a company should have given at least $72.9 million in 2007, as opposed to 2016, when this cutoff point actually increased. It went from 72.9 to 77.2. So in order to be part of this top 25, companies had to give more contributions in 2016. We also have the orange line, which represents the median of total giving. What's the value that has 50% of the observations above and below? So this number also went up. In order for a company to be in the middle of all the observations in terms of total giving, a company in 2007 should have given at least $40.6 million, as opposed to 2016, where this number went up to $43.9 million. So we see an increase in both the top quartile cutoff point and also in terms of the median of total giving. Companies are contributing more in the sample. And also we have a relative measurement, which is the ratio of total giving as a percentage of revenues, because this helps make the data more comparable and relative to each companies. I mean, all companies don't have the same amounts of revenues and total giving, but the ratios can help us give a sense of what's the proportion of total giving from all the revenues. So we see that this ratio also went up between 2007 to 2016. It went from 0.14% to 0.17%. So that has been increasing as well. And we must mention that this information relies on a 10-year match set. When we say a 10-year match set, we're basically saying that we're comparing the same companies that provided information in each of those 10 years. So we're basically comparing apples with apples. Following this, we also took a look into a 10-year match set of these two ratios, of the ratio of total giving as a percentage of pre-tax profits, and also of the ratio of total giving as a percentage of revenues. And we see that companies are allocating more of their revenues and pre-tax profits in 2016 compared to 2007. In 2007, companies were allocating 0.97% of their pre-tax profits into total giving. And in 2016, this ratio went up to 1.08. And also in terms of the ratio of total giving as a percentage of revenues, this went up from 0.14% to 0.17%, as we saw in the previous slide. We see the overall trend here. It's also important to mention what have been the latest trends in terms of volunteering. On the left-hand side of the slide, we have the percentage of increase of the percentage of companies that are offering all these domestic programs. So we can see, for instance, that programs related to offering a particular set of skills from workers, or where employees can be a little bit more flexible with their schedule, were the ones that increased more in terms of the percentage of companies offering them. So for instance, between 2010 and 2016, there was an increase of 16.7 percentage points in terms of pro bono service. And also for board leadership, this percentage went up. 15% more of companies were offering it in 2016 compared to 2010, and so forth and so on. On the right-hand side of the slide, we have the the employee volunteer participation rate. This is the percentage of employees who claim that they volunteer at least 1 hour on company time. This percentage of employees has increased as well, and this is really it follows the trend we've been seeing in the past. It goes from 33.7% to 40.1% in 2016. So we see a trend of increase here as well. And more information can be found on these pages of giving numbers as well. Following this, we also wanted to show some information that we collected in our other research, the one that has a global focus, which is given around the globe. And on the upper left-hand side of the slide, we see that the percentage of total given that went to international end recipients was 20% in 2016. In other words, out of $10 that were contributed by companies, 2 of those $10 went to international end recipients. And on the other 4 charts, what we have here is the percentage of North American companies that had any type of contribution in each of those countries of those regions. For instance, in Africa, 34% of North American companies contributed to South Africa with a median with an aggregate total giving of $14.54 million. We see that the following country with the higher share of North American companies participating there was Kenya, and followed by Ghana. When we check for the Asian region, we see that India and China, not surprisingly, were the countries with more societal investment in terms of the percentage of North American companies doing societal investments there. Basically, almost 56% of North American companies were able to contribute in India and 51% in China, and followed by Australia and Japan. We see that the contributions from North American companies basically go to countries with more capacity of managing this grants. When we check for Latin America and the Caribbean, we see that Mexico is the country with the highest percentage of North American companies doing contributions there, with 44% of North American companies having any type of societal investment in Mexico, followed by Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, Chile, and Haiti. Haiti was the country with one of the highest numbers of NGOs located there to do social work and to contribute in many aspects of community and economic development. And it's not surprising that Mexico was the country in Latin America with the highest percentage of North American companies investing there, given the North American Free Trade Agreement. In Europe, we see that the UK, the United Kingdom, is the one with the highest percentage of North American companies investing there. 6 out of 10 North American companies have some sort of contribution to international end recipients there, followed by Germany, and interestingly, Ireland. Ireland is a country that has been receiving a lot of companies from the UK and from all over the world have moved their headquarters into Ireland. So we see that there's a strategic decision in terms of investing in this country from North American companies. And we can see more of these trends in our Given Around the Globe report, and we're really happy that we were able to share some of these latest trends of corporate societal engagement with all of you. So, obrigado, vocês.
Muito obrigada. And again, very excited to read the upcoming report, the one that's launching today at Comunitas. Thank you again for allowing us to participate, and we look forward to any questions you might have. Please feel free to reach out to us. Comunitas, of course, can share our contact information. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.